And then, was it after that you had opened the Dartmouth Social Club over by the Triangle in San Francisco, Greenwich and Fillmore?
Oh yeah, the Dartmouth Social Club was right across the street from a bar my brother owned called the Balboa Cafe, and we had it going for a while, and then I made a giant mistake with a partner who was cashing $5,000 checks unbeknownst to me, and that brought the demise of that. But I sold it to a fellow or to a local restaurateur, and I came out of it unscathed, thankfully. I must have met Jesus because I was going broke in it.
I remember that the carpet you had in there, I think you had the Dartmouth logo, and you had it especially made, wall-to-wall carpet throughout the giant restaurant and bar. Is that correct?
Yes, I had a lot of, I had a custom-made rug for it, and some stained glass windows that were property of Dartmouth College years ago, and I had them up, and but it was, that too was a very, very busy place, and that I often have been very disquieted by the way that I handled it. It was a very, very busy place, and still I lost money at it because of two thieving partners, one being Harry Denton, who's in business now.
Now also, I believe you used to hire students or past students from Dartmouth. How did you tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I had 27 Dartmouth people from Hanover that came out here and came to the West Coast, and the first stop in town was the Dartmouth Social Club, and they all went to work for me. So we had sort of a real clean-cut Ivy League All-American crew there. Very bright people, and one of them is the governor of Delaware at this point.
Very good. And then the next one you opened was at Eddie Rickenbacher's. Is that correct, or did I miss something?
Yes, this is true. I retired for a couple of years or a year, and I got antsy, and so in the meantime I'd gone to an antique airplane auction, got drunk, and bought 3 antique airplanes, and had no place to put them. And so I hung them up in this vacant bar down on 2nd Street, and I named it Eddie Rickenbacker because they were World War I vintage airplanes, and I named the place after the great American flyer Horace that had shot down more airplanes than anyone else in World War I, and he built the Indianapolis Raceway and founded Eastern Airlines, and invented an automobile, got the Congressional Medal of Honor, and sort of a household word name when I was younger, and now people I have working for me now have no idea who he is. Fame is very fleeting, I guess one might say.
Going back to Henry Africa's, it was filled with antiques. Tell us a little bit about your acquisition of all these antiques, and also, I don't remember the time frame, but I remember you drove a truck across the United States. I can't remember exactly if that was for the antiques or you ran a couple trucks across the United States and picking up motorcycles for the Eddie Rickenbacher's bar. Could you clarify that?
Oh, I sold the airplanes. There were 2 of them to a guy in Cincinnati, Ohio. He used to own the Cincinnati airport. His name was Daniel Lunkin. And he bought the airplanes, and I came back, or when I was unloading the airplanes, he had a magazine of the roster of antique motorcycle collectors in America, and I asked him if I could have the book. And so coming back across country, I'd call up 500 miles down the road ahead of me, and I would buy motorcycles until I had the truck filled up, which was by St. Louis, and my money was gone, so I came back home and hung the motorcycles up.
In the Eddie Rickenbacker bar?
In the Eddie Rickenbacker bar, yep.
Now, where did you get all the antiques for Henry Africa's?
I bought them various places. I had Tiffany windows I bought out of Christie's in New York City. I bought them at Butterfield in Butterfield, a now defunct auction house in San Francisco. Newspaper ads, Hennings Motor News, word of mouth. I just developed a nose for getting stuff like that.
And the bar in Henry Africa's, I remember that was a beautiful old bar.
Yeah, it was a black walnut bar. It came out of a saloon and it had a big ivory rail on it, and it came out of a bar in Colorado, and I bought it from a dealer in Denver. It came out of a bar in a little town up north of Denver, in a silver mining town. Very, very luxurious. So when it was sold at I sold it the people, and then they had an auction in there. The people I sold it to had an auction, and the bar brought, I think, around $85,000 or $90,000 when it was resold at auction. Hey, Akaba, you want to make me one more limeade? Yeah. Only put a. Yeah. And put 3 limes, and if you take care of her first down there.
Now, getting back to Eddie Rickenbacker's, the bar that we're presently sitting in and enjoying, you bought quite a few very, very exotic Tiffany lampshades, lamps, etc. Not to mention all the motorcycles. You can tell us a little bit about the motorcycles in a moment. But you have a lot of Tiffany's you purchase, and just give us some idea. Most people have no concept of the price of Tiffany. They think it's maybe $1,000, $5,000, maybe even as much as $10,000. And you have the Wisteria, which I was quite impressed. Tell me where you bought that and about what you paid for that, roughly.
I bought the Wisteria at Christie's in New York City, and I paid $350,000 for it about 3 years ago. And then I have another laburnum shade, 26-inch shade, that I paid $550,000 for, and I bought that 2 years ago. And I have got I can't think of the name right now. A peony shade. I have a peony shade that is now worth around $300 or $3.50, and plus 4 or 5 other extracurricular shades. There's over $2 million worth of lamps on the back bar now.
And the motorcycles, what would you say? I videotaped those. What would you say the value of all the motorcycles would be if you just gave a rough total?
Well, I had the man that put has the biggest auction in the country in Las Vegas each year. He says there's around $1 million worth of motorcycles in here at auction.
Going back to the San Francisco Society, I'd like to hear your observations, since you are a bar owner, restaurant owner, et cetera, et cetera.
Social arbiter.
Social arbiter. And you get to know the people better than most psychiatrists and psychologists. Let's go back to 1960. Give us your observation of the men, the women in San Francisco, the society. You worked with them day by day and night by night, etc. Give us a little background, if you would.
Well, I realize that when people get older, they always yearn for the good old days. However, I unequivocally believe that most people that were there will agree with me that San Francisco was a better place to live in the 50s and 60s than now. First of all, people dressed up when they came downtown. Secondly of all, there were no drugs to speak of, or even people even talked about. The only drug that was used was alcohol, which is state controlled. But I think it has gone downhill from my observation.
Okay, let's roll forward into the 70s. Tell us the changes you saw in your clientele and also in the city, because you knew everyone. And I think Willie Brown was your neighbor and attorney next door, so you knew from the top to the bottom, or the bottom to the top, however you want to invert it.
Well, I saw the change in people when the so-called sexual revolution came on in the 70s, where the whole world, or the world realized that women enjoyed sex as much as men, and it was let the good times roll. And the birth control pill, AIDS hadn't come into the picture yet. As I said, any problem medically you could get could be cured with a shot of penicillin at the Hunt Street Clinic on 33 Hunt Street on Monday morning. And I think it was a better place back then. I know that when a cop told you someone to go do something, you went and did it instead of standing there arguing with him. And it just seemed to have, everything seemed to be under control more then than now.
Then we moved into the 80s and the 90s, and now 2000. If you can give us just your brief feeling of what's happened in the city here, one of the most famous cities in the world, San Francisco, California.
Well, it is now, I'm in my 75th year, a mere husk of a man that I used to be. And so, obviously, things are not as good now as they used to be, or as they were of yore. But yet, I think that every generation that comes along, the older people say, well, this younger generation is going to wipe itself out, and it's going to do this and do that. However, they always seem to rise to the occasion.
Well, I often look back at the good old days. Like you said, the worst thing that could happen to you, go down to the clinic, and within a week or so, you're back on the road again. And now you can get something you can't get rid of, and also you can get something that'll kill you. So truly, my opinion, and if you disagree, let me know, that truly my opinion is that those were the good old days.
Now people have a real reason to be celibate. But back 30 years ago, when the birth control pill came out, the magic of penicillin, it certainly took care of most physical problems, and maybe now we have, with drugs, I think it is not as good a world, or not as nice a world as it used to be.